1944, the first actual Nazi atomic bomb. Between the night of the 11th and 12th of October 1944, at a small island named Rugen off the northeast German coast was the test site for the Third Reich's top-secret atomic bomb test. A new kind of superweapon, stronger and efficient than any earlier weapons made in known human history. It was a new kind of weapon which the Nazis successfully detonated almost a year before the first successful test by America. One of the eyewitnesses to the test was an Italian officer by the name of Luigi. According to Rumersa, he and his Italian entourage and the German team arrived at the island a few hours away from Berlin at the test site. The observational post they were in was about a kilometer from the area of detonation. The area was guarded by a special elite unit of the SS. After the successful detonation, Rumersa claimed that the houses and trees that he had seen before the detonation were basically no more. Because of this successful detonation, the Führer of the Third Reich, Adolf Hitler, signed the order for the development of an atomic bomb. Because of this successful detonation, the Führer of the Third Reich, Adolf Hitler, signed the order for the development of an atomic bomb. A project that would end up in the hands of the SS and in secret given its most top-secret research over mainly to the American forces at the end of the war in 1945. According from the following article from the London Daily Telegraph, which was printed on August 11, 1945, states that the Nazis had plans for an atomic bomb already by August 1944, and that the successful launch with a catapult device successfully detonated an atomic weapon that gave off a radius of about 2 miles. One must ask themselves the following: if Hitler and his Nazis were successful in actually testing at first a smaller scale version of an atomic bomb, why was such a weapon actually never used by them on all the fronts against its enemies and against the major cities of the Soviet Union and the Western Allies? In this case, the capital of the Soviet Union, Moscow, London in England, and Washington DC in the US. Another article written on October 11, 1944 by the London Daily Mail states that Berlin was at this exact time unable to receive or send electronic communications for about 60 hours. This is what is known today as an EMP, Extreme Electromagnetic Pulse. This was most likely a different kind of weapon and a smaller sized version of it. Let's have a look at the Ohrdruf test site that was located in the south-central Thuringia area of the Third Reich. Basically, it was in the middle of the Reich's heartland. In March of 1945, as the war in Europe was coming to an end, Hitler still believed in the final victory over all the enemies of the Third Reich by using of his top-secret weapons that were being tested and could have been used against the Western and Eastern Allies. Even with Berlin in close range of the Soviet armies and the Allies in control over the skies of the Reich, the Ohrdruf test site was under the direct command of the SS. According to documents that were uncovered after the reunification of the former divided nation, was that an actual Nazi atomic bomb was successfully detonated in this area in March 1945. According to one eyewitness, it was Adolf Bernd Fryer, claimed that the Nazis in this particular area were also developing and testing circular aircrafts along the atomic weapons. To be more specific, anti-gravity propulsion technologies. Other weapons that had successfully developed there were such as the America rocket and also the very first ICBM, the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, which apparently was capable of reaching mainland America along with carrying warheads. They even had a complete underground area for the production of heavy water underneath Ohrdruf. According to Fryer, the Nazis under the direct control of the SS had atomic weapons. According to Fryer, the Nazis under the direct control of the SS had atomic weapons already capable to be used against its enemies on all the fronts by the middle of July 1944. No one till this day knows for sure what kind of atomic weapons had been developed. However, it was at this time of the same month that the near successful assassination plot against Adolf Hitler by Colonel von Stauffenberg and multiple high-ranked Wehrmacht generals and officers ultimately failed their attempt. If Colonel Stauffenberg and his conspirators against Hitler had actual knowledge of the successful atomic weapon that could have been used against the enemies on the battlefields and onto major cities across the world, then it could have been this point that led them to try to kill Hitler and its Nazis and put an end to the war once and for all. Fryer also claimed that a successful detonation took place on March 4, 1945, and that it apparently only weighed about 100 grams. He also claimed that all the slave laborers from the concentration camp were forced to be put above ground on the actual test site, where they were killed instantly in the blast. About 600-meter circle from the drop was created from the blast. This would mean that the area of the detonation was around 1.2 kilometers. With such a radius, this would mean that more than 100 grams was used, which Fryer claimed. This was most likely an atomic weapon that could be deployed on the battlefield by the Nazis and helped them in claiming domination over the planet as the masters of the world and possibly used beyond Earth. If the possibility existed of the usage of an atomic bomb on the fronts against mainly the overwhelmingly advanced Soviet forces to the east and against the major cities of the Allies, for example London and Washington DC, then ask yourself this: what kind of transportational device would then have to be used for such a powerful bomb by the Nazis? One must then go to the end of the war, as the British had entered Norway and discovered in the process some of the remaining secrets of the Nazis. One such secret that was discovered was 40 giant new type of bombers developed by Heinkel, which had a range of about 11,300 kilometers and were located on the largest Luftwaffe airfield in the whole of Nazi-occupied Norway and the entire Third Reich territories. According to statements by the captured Luftwaffe crews, was that the new long-distance Heinkel airplanes were stationed there and awaited orders all the way into the final hours to be used for a mission against New York City. A mission to fully see it wiped out from the face of the earth, as Hitler himself had wanted during the course of the war. Most likely to drop several atomic bombs on the American city and bring at first the Western Allies to defeat and then forwards towards the east and reclaim all its lost conquered territories and fulfill Hitler's ambition of a 1,000-year-old Reich. Why is it till this day so hard to discover the truth behind the Third Reich outmost top secret black projects, which eventually were undertaken under the direct control of the SS under the command of Hans Kammler, who disappeared at the end of the war? Different eyewitnesses who were part of the SS and Hans Kammler's inner circle told of various scenarios what had happened to him. Unable to verify any account of his end, the most likelihood is that just like in the American operation known as Operation Paperclip, did Hans Kammler surrender to the American forces, and that he most likely told them of the vital information about the top secret black projects that he and his inner circle were part of and had successfully developed for the Third Reich. Let's now go back to why wasn't such a powerful weapon ever used on both fronts. Simply put, the Third Reich did not have enough material available. By the end of the war, there had only been 1,130 tons of uranium from the Third Reich being captured by the Western Allies, mainly by the American forces, and about 2,300 tons were missing. The 2,300 tons, that was twice the amount of what the Manhattan Project had been able to produce since its start. To this day, the other missing 2,300 tons of uranium has never been found. In all aspects, such as in the post-war years amongst the different military branches of each Allied nation, the Third Reich had compartmentalized each section of its top-secret areas, meaning that each individual was on a need-to-know basis, which the Americans based that kind of control on as they developed their own secret weapons, mainly amongst its different airplanes. Could then the answer about not using such weapons against the enemies of Third Reich on the fronts to be the fact that when Kammler and his inner SS circle had gained so much of their own power over the Reich's most top-secret weapons projects, and seeing the coming defeat, that they wanted not to use them but instead continue in a covertly manner use the weapons and other unearthly weapons beyond our known realm, such as weapons that could open wormholes and into other dimensions to be used for another new type of Nazi Reich, a so-called Fourth Reich. Could it be that the known history about the victorious Allies and the defeat of the Third Reich be somewhat true and somewhat not true? Could it be that the most darkest technological secrets that Hitler's SS, which eventually took over, disappeared into 3 sections? The first being the subterranean secret base of 211 in Antarctica, also known as New Schwabenland. The second one being the escapees of the highest echelon, mainly of the SS innermost circle, belonging to Kammler, were given refuge under Americans and housed in America, and continued in secrecy under a new type of so-called deeper state within the official state to continue the Nazis' visions and ambitions for world conquest and extermination of others that they consider less. Could there have also been a third scenario in which an offshoot of Nazis and hand-picked military personnel and civilians who had the right so-called Aryan heritage to board actual flying saucers called the Hannibus and travel beyond Earth and settle on the dark side of the moon and other distant planets?